Jimmy, and this is Stephanie, and I'll explain this later. But right now, we'll look up here. So, as you may know, me and Stephanie went on a 2-week trip to Japan a few weeks ago, and we've just been absolutely blessed by the opportunity to do it. Everybody that's helped with prayer, all the other forms of support, just amazing. This church in general. I just want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to do this. And I realize this is some small text. This will pretty much be like the only slide in the text. So I'm just going to read this to you, though. Privilege and responsibility, I shared with the first service. I just feel like it's such an honor to be able to share the Word of God with others. And whenever I was in Swamp Cabbage this past February, I had my Moody Bible shirt on. And I got to talk with another guy who noticed it. We were talking about missions and what it means to be a Christian. And I told him it's just been so great to be able to work in the church, to work with the children, to be in the praise band, to be involved with missions. And he stopped me and he said, yeah, it's a privilege, but it's also a responsibility. And that really stuck out in my mind, and it's kind of been like a theme this year. So this is a very important verse. It's Romans 10:14. And I think this just sums up the need for global missions. It says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? That puts, if you really read that, with a strong conviction, it puts a strong burden on your heart that we are the feet, we are the hands, we are the ones that need to go out there if we have the ability to and share with these people who otherwise would not know who Jesus is, what he stood for, what he stands for, and what he can do in our life. So we'll start off with showing you guys a map of Japan. For some of you that may not know, on the next slide, what we told the kids in Wednesday night class whenever we were doing missions is Japan looks like a seahorse. So you can kind of see it now. So we got that yellow area on the mainland. That's where we were at. Okay, so that's just a really, really bitterly cold area in the winter. We saw the pictures, but we didn't get to experience it ourselves. But that's all Tohoku. And we were up in the northern tip of that yellow part in a place called Aomori. Now there's a city there that we stayed for our first week called Hirosaki. And Hirosaki is known for 2 amazing things. But they're both trees. And one's cherry blossoms. They have so if you type in cherry blossoms in Japan, chances are that city's going to come up. Just absolutely amazing, gorgeous. The other thing is apple trees. Apples. Over 3 million apple trees in this one city. They produce over 160,000 tons of apples a year. That's right. That's right. And you should see these apple trees. They individually bag the apples. If one's getting too much sun, they'll slightly turn it on the stem so it doesn't break. It's insane. It's absolutely amazing. The funny thing is, these apples, they're not native to this region. They're actually brought over, and they were brought over by Methodist missionaries in the mid to late 1800s. So it's kind of funny that tradition of this area is still rooted in Christianity, whether some even realize that or not. So yeah, we went from Aomori, which is on the top, to the east coast, Iwate, and then we went to the west coast of Akita. We'll talk more about those in a little bit. If we go to the next slide, and I'll explain these to you because we've got small numbers on the bottom. This is just Japanese religion statistics, okay? So what you need to see is just the blue bars. The first blue bar on the left, Shinto. We got about 74% of Japanese are Shinto, okay? 79%, I'm sorry. 67% are Buddhist. And we got a little teeny tiny guy down there that's 1.5% Christian. Okay, and what I told the kids is there's 34 million people in Tokyo and the suburbs alone of just Tokyo. So 1.5% is not a lot, and the statistics show that actually that number is more like 0.5% because that's the amount of evangelical Christians that are actually out there sharing the message. Okay, so we got some that believe but aren't really sharing, and we got just a few that are out there making disciples. Now, I'm no mathematician, but 79 and 67 is a lot more than 100. So we see a common problem with the religious views in Japan, and that's that they assume multiple religions. to them, it's not uncommon to have the Shinto birth and have your birth recorded at the nearest Shinto shrine. Have the Christian-style wedding that looks beautiful and everybody likes that, but then have the Buddhist rites whenever you die. So they have these three different religious things that they kind of go through throughout their lifetime. And it's more of a tradition. Because even on our first trip with Miss Bridwell and our second trip, we still heard the same thing. They practice Shintoism, they practice Buddhism, they agree with some stuff in Christianity, but they're not religious. So they have twice the amount of religions we do, too, but they're not religious. So that's kind of a problem whenever we really introduce the gospel and God as the only God. That's where the big problem is, because a lot of them have no trouble believing. It's just they have a hard time letting go of the traditional aspect. There's a lot of pressure on the children to carry on just the way things were. Nobody wants to be the one who goes against the grain, so to speak. So Stephanie's going to carry on and talk about our team for a little bit.
Okay, this is our picture of our prayer team. We were a small prayer team of 4. So it was Jimmy and myself, and then 2 girls. One was named Ronnie. She was from Hong Kong. And the other girl's name was Chelsea, and she's from Taiwan. We were actually only 2 of about 5 Americans, even there, as short-term missionaries. So we got to meet people from all over the world. It was really interesting and kind of amazing to realize that we were in the minority. We're not used to that. So it was interesting. So that was our prayer team, and our job was to travel. Well, first of all, our first week we stayed at the church that we were hosted at, and we just helped them with whatever they needed. And then the second week, we traveled around to different regions and different churches in the regions, and we prayed. That was our job. We went and we prayed for specific people, specific things, and we went and just prayed with these people and about these things that they needed. So if we go to the next slide, this is the church that we were hosted at. It's ran by a couple named Ruth and Martin Gent. They're actually from Canada, and they've been in Japan for 32 years, which is a really crazy long time, but for them to be there. But they hosted us, and they actually took this building. It was an abandoned Apple storage facility, and they took it over and remodeled it to make it into a sanctuary. So the bottom lower half is their church sanctuary, and the top are converted into rooms where they could host people. So, and then on the side that you can't see, they have a house that they've also remodeled, or in the process of remodeling. And the thing about this place is not common, but they can host a lot of short-term missionaries. So our first night there, we were 2 of about 30 short-term missionaries going through this church. And they have the facility to host them, and so they do. If we go to the next slide. This is a picture of the worship service. We got there on Saturday night, and so the next morning we were able to attend the worship service at their church. And the whole thing was in Japanese, so I was really lost, and especially with jet lag, so I was really, really lost. And but as you can see, it can seat about 50 people, but really most of them that were there that morning were short-term missionaries, and maybe 6 or 7 church members. That's very common for church membership to be very low. And around 5 or 6 don't even believe. They're just there to get information. That's very common also. You'll have people coming and seeking, but they actually won't call themselves a Christian. If we go to the next slide, we saw this church reaching out to the community in so many different ways. Their purpose is to get people in the church. They don't have people just coming to church. They need to get them in the building. So in order to do that, they have all these different ministry outreach programs. For example, a women's Pilates class. They hosted this one morning, and they follow a YouTube video, and it gets people in the door. That's what they want. And at the end of every single one of these outreach programs, they always end it with a Bible lesson or a testimony, some way to get the Word of God out there to these people. So example, they do a women's play group. They did an English, they do multiple English classes for kids and adults. They did a men's exercise class, they did a ukulele class, an art class, and tons of Bible studies. And again, the people coming are not believers. They just need to get them in the door so that they can share the Word of God with them. Next slide, please.
Okay, so we got two church buildings here. The one on the left is actually at a university in Hirosaki. And the chapel there is amazing. It's built in the late 1800s. It's got a huge pipe organ, and people had the white gloves on, and they were playing the chimes and the bells. And it was just amazing. Stained glass, the whole night. Very traditional, very traditional. And there was about 120 people in there on a Thursday morning. But they were all students. They make it mandatory that you attend chapel Thursday morning. And the interesting thing about this university is, even though it's a Christian university, it's got a Christian president and really good leadership, the students aren't Christian. This is kind of like the second or third tier university in the town. So this was kind of, I think, a lot of their only option within the city. But again, it's getting them there. You can tell there are some people that are genuinely interested. There are others that are just there to do what they have to do. A guest pastor was actually there and sang this awesome song on guitar and just really just emotional, just did a great job. And there was like open laughter behind us as we were sitting up front, and we just noticed like all the students are kind of just cackling and laughing. And we're like, oh, maybe he's singing something funny, you know? Maybe I didn't think he was, but come to find out, we talked with the pastor later, and he just said that's just such a typical Japanese thing. The students kind of didn't really know how to respond to him standing out and being like open and not really caring when anybody else stopped. So like their response was to kind of giggle, and it just kind of got louder and louder. And so yeah, that's kind of a typical thing there. But he brushed it off, and he finished his sermon, and he was just an awesome guy. And something that we noticed a lot of is on the buses, on the trains, on the sidewalk, there's just not a lot of small talk. Not a lot of socializing, really. I mean, there's some parks and people are playing and some families out there, but overall, especially on the buses and trains, just no talking. Everybody's kind of either in a daze or going to sleep or on their phone. And I understand a lot of people they just had a long work day and they just want to commute home and just get there. But the Christians we met, the Japanese Christians, you could tell immediately they were smiling, they were joyous, they were laughing. That's not to say that the others weren't, but they were just like, grab you and they hug you, and it was crazy. It was like a night and day to see, Christ working in somebody like that. It was absolutely amazing. And this pastor, before he left, he actually was saying bye to everybody, and he said, "I'll see you later," and he pointed up to heaven, in his broken English. It was just really cool to see him have that perspective already, that there's a future home for all of us. The church on the right, it's a super small church. Of course, the family will live up in the second story. And that guy's family, actually, his name was John Orm. His kids had chicken pox. So he was like, all right, we're going to quarantine the kids up there. But he's like, it's going to sound weird, but I do have one kid that hasn't gotten a second shot yet. So I'm trying to get him to have chicken pox. It was really strange. So they were doing all these activities. He was trying to get his kid to have chicken pox. But that's kind of counterintuitive. But we stayed downstairs just for, I've already had it, but we're just going to stay away from all that. And we did English classes down there. And this guy has about 4 members in his church, and they're all over 40, which is super common. Not only is the church membership small, but the church age is very well beyond 40. 40 was actually young. He's got like a younger church. But he was a great guy from Northern Ireland, just a true heart for God. And the next slide is kind of inside of the church. We were doing the English class. It's Kanagi Chapel in a place called Untitled. And so, the kids on the left, they're learning about what they call trousers. They're learning about trousers and scarves. And they don't go to church, but they come to the English class. And that's just another way to get them in. And after this, they share a Bible study with the kids. And the kids are all about it. That's not why they come, but they ask questions. They're engaged. The parents even ask questions. They sit in on it. So these are just things that they offer. They offer just to get them in, like Stephanie said. They don't have the basic group to work off of. And everything in the Japanese church that we saw is outside Like they want to let everybody know about Jesus. They're not just about in their church, in their church building. They have to get out. They have to get the word out. They put articles in the paper. They'll do flyers, pamphlets, leaflets, everything. It's all about getting the people in, giving them a service, but then also giving them the word of God. And we saw some great things. Right? The little group there, we played a board game about animals, and it was a really good time that we had there. This next slide, Stephanie's going to take over again.
Okay, so we visited a region of Japan that was hit in 2011 by an earthquake and tsunami, and it was devastating. The whole cities were just wiped out by this tsunami. And they said, oh, we're going to go visit this little cafe. So we pull up to this little shack, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this place? Well, it's called Suiga Cafe, which is Watermelon Cafe. And it's this lady from California who helps run it, and her name is Renee Williams, and she had been through an earthquake in California, a really bad one, and she knew how it felt and how it impacted her area where she was living. And when she found out about the earthquake and tsunami hitting Japan, she knew that she had to do something because she remembered how it was for her. And so she left a nice job, she left a mega church that she belonged to, and she moved to Japan, and she started helping run this little cafe. And it's, in its own unique way, is a ministry. She invites people in from around the city that's just been devastated. I mean, people there are traumatized and just, really depressed and in a really hard place, even this long after. And she has these cute little watermelon decorations and these cute little watermelon drinks, and it's just a little simple way to show some love and some hope to these people. And she, of course, will share Bible studies inside the cafe. So it's another way of getting the people in the building and sharing the Word of God. So it's just one big example of a ministry that happens over there. Next slide, please.
And that's actually in what they call an induction zone. So that's like, there was nothing left standing. It's just that shack. and it's actually in like a red zone to where they can't, after 6 o'clock, nobody can even be there. So she has to leave every day at 6 o'clock, just in case, because there's no protection for that area. Medical services won't go out there in case there's an accident. But there was people there whenever we got there, and there was people coming in whenever we were leaving. So it's cool how God's using that ministry. Now this one's kind of cool. This is the Amori Christian Center. They call it the ACC. Think of like Riverside Retreat, but up in the mountains. And a lot of snow. They showed us pictures to where the snow was actually up to the wooden sign. And I guess that's typical. So just a lot of maintenance. A man named Luke and his wife Yuko run and take care of this whole area. He had about 115 or 120 huge trees get marked that he has to cut down and burn and get rid of for their expansion that they're thinking of. And he's out there doing it all. He has such an ambition, such a fire for what God can do with this place. And they have summer classes there. They have summer camps. They do youth ministry stuff there. They do winter classes. So like 6 months out of the year, it's snowy and they're kind of dealing with the snow. And the other 6 months of the year, they're dealing with the snow that just happened and the snow that's coming up. But it's an amazing place. There's so many opportunities there. I wish we could show you more pictures. We have so many, but it's just a huge acreage with playgrounds, basketball courts, the whole nine. They got like little ski slopes. It's amazing. And I told the first service, and I'll tell you guys, seriously, if you have an interest in going overseas and you have any sort of craftsmanship ability, whether it's carpentry, anything like that, like being a missionary is so much more than what you think. You can use any skill that you have right now and be plugged into a missionary somewhere. And this guy in particular is looking for people that are great with their hands, people that just are hard workers, and he would be glad to have you. So if there's any interest, seriously, that's something that is on the table for you guys. So whenever you think of a missionary, just have a really broader thing in your mind of what that is. They need people in administration. They need people who coordinate. They need carpenters. They need teachers. They need IT. They need whatever skill God's equipped you with, they can use. Use it, anything. We'll go to the next slide. We'll explain this slip dress I have on. All right, so this is actually, I call this my all seasons attire because all these kanji on here mean like summer and winter and fall. So I got this at a textile factory in Kyoto on the first trip. But this is in a place called Hanamaki, surrounded by mountains and streams. It's amazing. It's ryokan, which means it's like a traditional style Japanese inn. No air conditioning, the tatami mat floors, which are like the woven, really like softer than what they look like floors. Futons, no toilets that are in your room, and no showers in your room. But you do have a public toilet and you do have a public bath. So on the way to the public bath, you wear like you got that like this, and then you wouldn't. And so that's why it's time to make some new friends the old-fashioned way. And yeah, so you're kind of out there and you meet some new people and you're kind of experiencing it. Natural hot spring water is something that we did multiple times. We did it once on the first trip, and we did it like 4 times in this trip. And it's just really an experience. If you're ever in Japan, you've got to try it. It's amazing. It is. They have multiple different baths. They have like sulfur baths, and they have baths for people that's supposed to have like healing purposes for people like psoriasis and all these different things. So it was actually really amazing thing. But we had to throw that in there because it was actually one of our most memorable nights. And the picture that we showed you earlier of our prayer team, we were actually at that hotel. So we can go to the next slide.
Okay, so we visited a lot of different churches and a lot of different facilities that were offering different ministries. And this is just a couple for an example. On the left, we went here and met another missionary. He is Japanese, but he actually went to Brazil as a missionary, and he just came back to be a guest speaker at this church. So it's really interesting to hear about a Japanese pastor who went to Brazil to be a missionary. And the interesting thing and the touching thing about this meeting was that he requested that we have some worship time together. So we were not expecting this at all, but he said, I want to play some songs with you and sing with you. And we're like, okay. So we all talked about some different hymns that we all know. Got to go back in the brain to find some hymns that we remember, and we all sang in our native languages. So some of them sang in Japanese, our 2 teammates sang in Chinese, and we sang in English. We were definitely the shorter end of the stick there. But it was good. It was an amazing experience to know that we were all worshiping the same God in all these different languages. It was a really touching moment, and for being unexpected and unprepared, I feel like that's how God shows up, in the most unexpected places and the most unprepared situations. So we just were definitely in the presence of God when we were doing that with him. And we just wanted to share that special moment. And then on the right side is another church that we visited with a Japanese pastor and his wife. And most churches over there are, the bottom is the sanctuary, the top is where they live. Well, his wife had a severe stroke, and the left side of her body was completely not being able to be used. So she had to be put in a wheelchair. Well, her wheelchair wasn't going upstairs, so they had to actually move downstairs into their sanctuary. So they're not only living inside their sanctuary, now they're tasked with finding either a new home or a new place to do church services. So they were in a very tough situation. And it was just really touching to hear their testimony, especially the wife who, she just hasn't given up at all. She, in her broken English, she shared with us that she will not be shaken. She will not be broken by this. And it was just, we were there to help them and do whatever we could for them, but we were touched so much more than we could have ever done to anybody else. So it was just an amazing moment to meet such strong people and strong people of faith. Oh yes, and he was a professional boxer for quite a while, so that was an interesting story. Their testimonies are amazing. I wish we could share all of them. If we could just go to the next slide, please. talking about special moments, the text says, when you go to Japan to witness to the Japanese, and end up being an answered prayer to a Bulgarian. So we were in this area by the coast, and they said, oh, you guys probably don't care about seeing the beach because you're from Florida. And we said, no, I want to go to the beach. It'd be really interesting to see the differences. So she's like, okay, we have like 10 minutes. Let's hurry up and go. So we took off to the beach, and we were the only ones on the beach except for this lady and her 2 kids. And we were just walking by, going back to where we had to go. And she looks at us and says, who are you? And we said, we're like, whoa, who are you? So we started talking, and she burst into tears the moment she found out who we were and what we were doing there. Because not 5 minutes before that, she said she had prayed to meet Christians. Because in Japan, she came from Bulgaria with a Japanese husband. Her husband doesn't believe, but she does. But they moved here for work. And she's all alone. She doesn't speak Japanese yet. And she had no support whatsoever. She didn't know what to do with herself. And so she said that prayer, and God answered it. God showed up in one of her darkest moments. And that was unplanned, unscheduled, not part of our trip at all. But it happened because God shows up. No matter where or how, He's there. And that was just a huge, aha moment for me. That wasn't planned. It wasn't part of the trip. But it was one of the biggest parts of the trip, if you know what I mean. So we're Facebook friends. She's gotten in touch with the churches there. She's involved in the church now. And her prayers were answered above and beyond that day. And so that was really just very touching.
Yeah, that's probably our best day that we had there. We visited those 2 churches, and this happened on the same day. It was just amazing to see God working in this place called Aomori City. It's like the capital, and it's just a really dark place, just a lot going against it, but we just saw God not giving up on people. If we could go to this next slide, it's just a time with the tsunami, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. The one that says, or maybe the one, no. So looking for relief, it's just, there's so much things that have happened in the past, whether it's the war, the tsunamis, just the constant earthquakes, or just even just their own way of functioning through life. But just it doesn't allow them a good outlet for grief, and they look for answers in the wrong way. They look for answers in lifeless statues. They look for answers in things in nature, and God says in the Bible tells us in Romans that people can see God through His creation. So it's like they're almost there. They see these beautiful mountains and streams, and they attribute gods to them, but they don't attribute it to the one true God. And so they're halfway there, but it's just they're still so far away. There's so much grief and there's so much pain with dealing with loss. They just don't understand it. That it's really sad to see shrines filled with these little statues that represent loved ones of the past, and they're still trying to clothe them, and they're still trying to make them comfortable wherever they're at now in the afterlife. It's really heartbreaking and sad to see it in person, to see just a building filled up with what could have been or what could be in their minds. It was just really sad and eye-opening. This next slide is going to show you about the tsunami. So in 2011, the triple disaster hit. It was the earthquake, which was 9.0, huge. The tsunami, and then the nuclear reactor fell. The cooling mechanisms fell and leaked radiation. So we're going to, talking about tsunamis is one thing. I just got a quick 15-second clip to show you. This is actually one of the places that we went to on the East Coast. So yeah, this next clip's going to show some of the aftermath. This is typical of the area. So yeah, people had maybe about 20, 25 minutes from whenever the earthquake hit in some places to find out tsunami was coming and get out of the way. And unfortunately for a lot of people that didn't happen. Estimates between like 12 and 18,000 people lost their lives all throughout the East Coast. And this was not just a disaster, this was like a mega disaster. Geologists say that Honshu, the main island of Japan, moved 8 feet eastward during the earthquake. So an entire island nation was moved 8 feet, and that the resulting earthquake and effects actually tilted the Earth on its axis slightly. So we're actually shortened the day by a microsecond. So this was like a huge, huge event, and just devastating. We went to places that are just not even close to being rebuilt. This was 7 years ago, and places that are not going to be rebuilt. Just because the young families have left, the kids have left, there's too many bad memories. They don't want to go back. There's no businesses there anymore. So the elderly that are there are kind of living out the rest of their time, and then once they pass, the cities and towns will be ghost towns. And that's typical of about 4 or 5 different areas that we saw. The ones that are rebuilding, they're building huge seawalls, and the seawalls are about 90 foot tall in some areas. And those are ambitious projects. Those don't get done in 7 years. So a lot of the ones we saw were halfway done. Some of them had just started. Just a lot going against these people. A lot of devastation. One of the churches actually in the town that we just showed you the video from, we visited, and it was right on the coast. It got flooded up to the 2nd story. And whenever the missionaries went in there afterwards to assess the damage, there was a shark in the sanctuary. And the pastor was just outside in a chair, just with a glazed look over his face, just what do I do? How do I start? What goes on now? And so there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of PTSD, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety. These pastors, they just feel hopeless. Like, why rebuild? It's just going to be destroyed again. There's a huge, huge need. There's so much pressure on the people. It's so common to see churches in Japan that are pastorless. They have people that want to do well, they want to follow God, but they can't make that last commitment to be a pastor themselves. A lot of places we went to, it was very comfortable for them to have foreign pastors take on that role. But the goal of OMF, the organization we went with, the goal of Christians in general shouldn't be to have an American church in Japan, or an Australian church in Japan, or a Chinese church in Japan. It should be to have a Japanese church in Japan. So they say that missionaries are supposed to be working themselves out of a job. You kind of go there, equip the people, make sure that they got sound doctrine and they can do it, and then move on to another area. So the next slide, what now? Slideshow's kind of coming to an end, but the mission does not end. And this is actually at one of the churches in Amore City. I saw this and I had to take a picture of it because it just sums it up. So what can we do now? What we can learn. All of us have access to a person or a computer nowadays or a phone. You guys can learn about Japan, learn about the need. You can learn about the religious statistics. You can learn about how it is you can help. You can pray. Prayer can happen anywhere. All right, it was the first cell phone that God gave us. All right, a cordless connection to Him. We can pray anywhere at any time, and it's powerful no matter where we do it. Okay, we can pray for the nations. We can go for those of us that are equipped and have that call. Go, and I stress this with the first group. Don't be like me and kind of always feel in your heart that you need to do something like this, but then give up before you start. I was always like, I'll let somebody else, or I don't know how I'm going to afford it, or am I smart enough, or how would this happen, how would that happen, how would that. If you have that call, God's put it on you for a reason, and He will provide for you, okay? So don't give up before you start. Send, as a church, we can send people, and we're doing a great job of that now. Welcome. There's plenty of international students, international people, even here in Louisville. So just welcome them with open arms, invite them to church. You'd be surprised at the connections you can make with that. And then mobilize kind of sums it all up, like take what you've learned and take what you've seen and take what you've read about and actually apply it. And then this last slide is like my favorite. This was taken on our first trip leaving. And I put the need visualize, and this is kind of like the outskirts of Tokyo. And just like out of our plane window, as far as you can see, I just see people, like buildings, businesses, homes. It's just like, it seriously is like a concrete jungle. But there's people in those buildings. And there's people that haven't heard about Jesus. It's not like here in the West, I shared with also, whether we want to or not, we have access to God. Whether it's a Christian radio station, a movie, a book, a church on every corner, people talking about it on our money and God we trust. God is everywhere, whether we want to seek Him or not. It's like a buffet line of Christianity in America, but there's other places where there is no table to eat at. There's other places in the world where they don't know who Jesus is, what He stood for. They don't know who God is, or confused about what a God is. And all we can do is share. We can't change one person, but we can share with them and trust God to do the rest. So yeah, we just want to thank everybody. I know it ran a little late. I just want to thank everybody for being patient with us and hearing this today. And I just want to thank everybody who prayed for us and will continue to pray for all the people in missions. And pray for this church as we decide what we're going to do as a church with missions. Just thank you so much for the people that have helped. And we're so happy that we got the opportunity. And we're talking about maybe trying to go back spring break time for 2 weeks with the family. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But thanks for the opportunity you guys have had so far to help us. And this was your trip as much as it was ours. So thank you.